Hello and welcome. We are excited to introduce you to the upcoming webinar series from the 988 Crisis Systems Response Training and Technical Assistance, otherwise known as the CSR-TTAC, focused on evidence-based practices in crisis care. This short teaser will give you a glimpse into what's ahead, why this series matters, and how you can be a part of it. The views expressed in written conference materials or publications and by speakers and moderators do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial practices, or organizations imply endorsements by the U.S. government. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has selected Alterum to provide training and technical assistance support to states, territories, tribal organizations, and community partners across the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and Crisis Care Continuum. Along with our partners W2 Consulting and Change Matrix, who have extensive experience with crisis services and technical assistance, the CSR-TTAC was formed to support the continued growth of the 988 Lifeline and build a more robust crisis care system. At the CSR-TTAC, we're committed to supporting communities in building effective, responsive, and sustainable crisis response systems. This new learning series is designed to spotlight evidence-based practices, or EBPs, that are foundational to high-quality care. In this teaser, we'll walk through the national policy landscape, the series goals, and the two key focus areas: follow-up care and ethics in behavioral health crisis response. Joining us today to introduce this new webinar series is Jill Mays, Division Director for Crisis System Transformation for the 988 and Behavioral Health Crisis Coordinating Office at SAMHSA, where she leverages over 30 years of experience in behavioral health field to lead evolutionary and collaborative work for the 988 Behavioral Health Crisis Continuum. Jill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited about introducing this webinar series. So let's start with the bigger picture. At the end of 2024, SAMHSA released our new 2025 National Guidelines for Behavioral Health Coordinated Crisis System of Care, along with national model standards and definitions. And these two documents and subsequent documents that will be coming out that give a little deeper dive into each of the levels and types of services. These documents are reshaping how crisis services are delivered across the behavioral health crisis care continuum by presenting overarching principles for behavioral health crisis system transformation, clarifying the elements that comprise the continuum, and offering guidance to support coordination of these elements to create and sustain crisis systems. Some of you may have heard me talk about the puzzle pieces and how those pieces fit together. So a key theme across existing guidance that feeds into this webinar series is that crisis services should be evidence-based, evidence-informed, and/or reflect best, promising, and emerging practices. Services should be informed by the best available research and practice-based evidence. Services should be considered within the context of the population served, the organizational context, and the broader community in which those services are provided. As appropriate, providers may need to adapt services to increase their fit given the available evidence and community context in which they're delivered. By implementing evidence-based practices in practice, providers can promote higher quality of care and better outcomes among those served across the behavioral health crisis care continuum. And that's what it's about, better outcomes for those that we serve. So in support of ensuring crisis services are evidence-based, the current series is focused on follow-up care and ethics. So why are we starting with follow-up care and ethics? Well, let's break that down. Follow-up care is not just a recommendation, it's a standard. Emergency and crisis intervention should focus on both alleviating the current crisis and lowering the risk of future episodes. While a single crisis service may be sufficient to stabilize a person's situation, it's often the case that someone will need multiple services in the crisis continuum before their experience is stabilized enough to return to routine care. People who are experiencing a crisis need to have continued support and resources after the initial acute crisis event. As presented in the national guidance documents, crisis services should provide continuity of care from onset of crisis until stability and include follow-up care and linkage. After a crisis encounter, follow-up ensures continuity, reduces the risk of repeat crises, and it builds trust with those we serve. It's about staying connected, whether through phone calls, peer support, or coordinated referrals. Follow-up services that are planned for and occur at every point on the crisis continuum essentially serve as the fourth essential element of the crisis continuum. So ethics, why are we starting again with ethics? Crisis situations, as everyone knows, can be quite complex. They demand very thoughtful, principled responses. Crisis services in behavioral health rely on strong ethical standards to guide our decision making. So in this series, we'll explore key ethical principles like respect for persons and autonomy, respecting everyone's worth, dignity, and individual choice. Justice, which is ensuring fair access, treatment, and outcomes for all people. Transparency, and that simply means being clear and honest with those we served and with our partners that we work with. Beneficence, minimizing harm and benefiting those served. Confidentiality, respecting privacy, safeguarding information and data, and understanding when disclosure is required and how to facilitate that disclosure. Finally, accountability, being accountable for one's actions and their impact on others. These principles guide every decision in crisis care from engagement to discharge. And we are excited that you'll be joining us for this webinar series so that we can take a deeper dive into these topics. I'll turn it back over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you for that great overview of the focus and the importance of this upcoming webinar series. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the schedule that we have planned. Our first webinar on September 11th will focus on suicide prevention and follow-up care, strengthening safety planning and risk monitoring. Our second webinar on October 30th will focus on From Crisis to Connection, building effective follow-up systems. Our third session on November 13th, Building the Call, will focus on building community-informed follow-up models, followed by our fourth and final session on April 2nd, which will be focused on ethical decision-making in crisis response. Throughout the series, you can expect a deep dive into EVPs that shape crisis system design and delivery. Sessions will be led by national experts and practitioners who will be sharing practical tools and strategies you can apply in your own work. The CSR-TTAC will also be hosting office hours following each session for additional support you and your teams may need. Be on the lookout for registration with full details. We hope this teaser sparked your interest. The full series is coming soon with the first webinar again scheduled for September 11th. The CSR-TTAC will be sharing registration details via our listservs, partner networks, and newsletters. While you await additional details through these channels, you can register using our QR code presented here. Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to learning with you and advancing crisis care together. If you have any questions, please utilize our contact information here. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon.